Okay. So let me start off by just giving you a little background about myself. I think most of you probably know that I'm a physician. My training is in internal medicine and endocrinology. And I came to this country right after medical school, long time ago. I look younger than I actually am. And when I came, the Vietnam War was coming to an end. There was a great crisis in America. All the doctors were in the army, so we were being recruited from everywhere in the world. And India was discouraging us to leave. And one of the ways they discouraged us was that they had foreign exchange regulations, so you couldn't leave the country with more than $8. I had an uncle in London who lent me $100, so now I had $108. And if there are any Indians in this room, then they'll know that 108 is a very auspicious, holy, sacred number. I thought I should do something really auspicious with my money, my $108. So I went to Paris and I spent it all in one night at the Moulin Rouge. So when I got to this country, I had nothing. But you know, America is so creative. You have all kinds of amazing customs. One of them, of course, is called a collect call. So I made a collect call to my hospital and I said, if you want a doctor, you'll have to pick me up. And they were so desperate that they sent me a helicopter. So my first experience of the United States is lifting off in a helicopter, Manhattan, evening, looking at the skyline, and wondering what Disney World would be like if New York is so magical. 20 minutes later, I was in a small town called Plainfield, New Jersey, and I reported to the emergency room where I was going to start working. And the nurse said, we'll call you when your shift starts. Why don't you go to the dorm and get some rest? So I went to my dormitory. I switched on the television set. And when I left India, there was no TV in India. So this was my first experience of seeing a little box with people inside it. And it was in color. I was totally captivated watching Wimbledon when suddenly the program was interrupted. There was a news bulletin. Some policemen had been shot at a local bank, which was being held up, and they had been badly wounded, and they were being brought to the emergency room where I was going to start working. And I had passed all my exams, but actually had never seen a patient. So I had my first attack of acute panic. Red alert. Shortly thereafter, the nurse called me and she said, Dr. Chopra, we have an expiration. And I had no idea what the word meant, but I didn't want to let on, so I said, you bet, I'll be there. And I quickly bounded down the stairs and very cheerfully announced my arrival, and the nurse showed me into a room where there was a dead man, lots of machines, no people. In India, of course, it was lots of people and no machines. And I looked at this dead body, I looked at the nurse, and I said, he's dead. Inside, I was saying my first diagnosis. And she said to me, I told you, we had an expiration. So I finally knew what the word meant. And I didn't understand why one would need a doctor if the patient was already dead. So I asked her, I said, if he's already dead, what do you want me to do? And she looked at me and she pointed her finger at me like this and she said, pronounce him. Pronounce him. I knew I was in a different galaxy now, where your soul couldn't leave your body till a medical deity, otherwise known as MD, said, you're free, I release you. So, of course, you know, we doctors also have our rituals. People treat us like shamans. We are magical beings in a sense. We are put on a pedestal. People invest a lot of authority in us. And we have our own rituals. The shamans used to wear leopard skins. We wear white coats. The shamans had feathers around their neck. We have a stethoscope. The shamans used Aborigine mantras. We use Latin mantras. The shamans danced around a fire. We dance around CAT scanners. And so I realized I was supposed to do my rituals. Examine the pupils, listen to the heart, etc., even in the face of the obvious. And having learnt English in India, which is a little similar to English, I said to the nurse, "May I have a torch, please?" which is the English word for a flashlight. And she really looked at me. And she said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want a torch." By now there were people outside watching us, and my nurse looked at the nurse outside and she said, "He wants a torch." And she kind of looked me up and down and she said, "Maybe he wants to do a cremation." So it was a bit of a rocky start, but you know, it's amazing how we adapt. In 6 hours, not only was I used to the atmosphere in the emergency room, I actually relished it. In fact, I quickly became aware that I had an addictive personality, that I was addicted to the atmosphere in the emergency room, the stress, the adrenaline rush, the cortisol high, waiting for the next trauma patient to arrive so I could practice my newly discovered surgical skills. In fact, I realized that's what we call ourselves, practitioners. We keep practicing and practicing. So I didn't want to leave the emergency room. 24 hours later, the nurse actually insisted that I should leave because I just wanted to see more trauma. I didn't realize that people were suffering. I just wanted to see more trauma so I could practice. Anyway, 24 hours later, she insisted that I leave, and I went to my dorm and I couldn't sleep. So I went to Main Street, Plainfield, and I stood outside a television store. There were about 50 color TVs in the window. I told you I'd never seen TV before. So the salesman came out and he said, "You really like those, don't you?" I said, "I do." He said, "So get one." I said, "I don't have any money." He said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a doctor." Magical word. He said, "Come on in, doc. All you have to do is sign this yellow piece of paper and you choose what you want, we'll send it." So of course I signed a yellow piece of paper, brought home a colored TV to the dorm, which already had 5 TV sets. And the next day, after working 24 hours more in the emergency room, I went to an automobile agency. And I asked for the manager. I said, "I'm a doctor. Okay. Can I have a yellow piece of paper? I want that car." And so I drove out to the brand new automobile, a Volkswagen Beetle. 2 days in America. And so started the ritual of spending money that I hadn't earned to buy things that I didn't need to impress people that I didn't like. And of course, soon got into the whole treadmill